This is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and it's possibly the most affordable option when it comes to getting into a RAW video workflow, excluding the methods you can use to get RAW video from Magic Lantern. This is not a hack. So in this video we're going to be finding out what you get for a sub $1,000 cinema camera. Straight out of the box, you get in an LP E6 battery, the power cord, the body itself, some documents along with a digital copy, and DaVinci Resolve. Looking at the body of the camera, it's very light. It has a stills camera feel to it, which is nice and familiar. On the front side we have auto iris, focus, high frame rate, zoom, menu, and playback, all nice and neatly spaced out. On the top we have ISO, shutter, white balance, stills, and the record button. Above the screen we have the power button, or the power switch, and 3 custom buttons. The menu. The menu is easy to use and intuitive, unlike some other brands. Sony. The recording options. You're getting several options when it comes to shooting 4K RAW and ProRes, along with the in-camera de-squeezing for anamorphic shooting at 2.8K in the highest quality of Blackmagic RAW. So your options for recording RAW are Blackmagic RAW at constant bitrate or constant quality at 3.1, 5.1, 8.1 and 12.1, along with the resolution options DCI 4K, Ultra HD, 2.6K at 16:9, Full HD, and of course the anamorphic 2.8K that I mentioned. In ProRes you've got the option of DCI, Ultra HD and Full HD, along with HQ422LT and proxy. On the second record menu I stick with film at 25 frames per second. Off-speed recording is if you wanted to select a specific number of frames per second, like 12 for example. Then you also have your card recording options. In the third record menu we have time-lapse, detail sharpening, and apply LUT in file. In monitor we have LCD selected, that's what we're looking at right now. Clean feed makes no difference for us just using this unit. Display 3D LUT, zebra, focus assist, frame guide for exporting in a different aspect ratio to the one that you're shooting in. Grid for composition, safe area guide, and false colour. All of this can be controlled from the live view screen itself via the touchscreen, which is really handy. For the audio you have the options for camera left and camera right. Using the onboard microphones, I've got nothing else plugged in at the moment. The second page contains headphone volume, phantom power, and your audio meters. Setup is very self-explanatory. I have shutter angle selected so that the shutter speed changes accordingly if and when I change the frame rate. I'm using 50 Hz because I'm in the UK. Image stabilization just switches on or off the IS, VC or VR in the lens. It's not the sensor that is stabilized. This camera doesn't have IBIS. Presets is where you add or import presets. And LUTs, which you can custom make yourself with DaVinci Resolve. And that of course comes free with this camera. Alright, so you're getting the Blackmagic RAW with the 13 stops of dynamic range, along with various flavours of ProRes in a camera that's like the size of a classic DSLR. That's all well and good, but what are some of the drawbacks of such a budget-friendly camera? The sensor. It's sporting a micro four thirds sensor, and while the general consensus is that a larger sensor is better, you get more depth of field, a wider field of view, etc. There are plenty of solutions for a small sensor. Metabones sells a dedicated speed booster for the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Think of it like a magnifying glass in front of the sensor. Other brands like Viltrox also produce a speed booster at a fraction of the price of Metabones, albeit with a slight sharpness reduction. IR pollution or infrared pollution. The second biggest con is that it doesn't have a built-in IR filter, or IR blocker should I say. I won't get super technical here, but basically digital sensors see a larger range of light than the human eye can see. We can't see infrared light, but the digital camera can. This becomes apparent when using ND filters that don't also have an IR blocker. This is known as IR pollution, and it's detrimental when retaining accurate colours in camera. You might be thinking, maybe it's not that big of a deal, it's probably just an incremental difference to cameras with IR blockers, or shooting on film. And let me tell you that it makes more of a visible difference than you'd think. Some more higher end ND filters do have IR blockers. Let's talk about the battery life. It's not great, but I actually expected much worse. You know, I think people forget that it wasn't long ago that we were all dealing with the quirks of actual film. From the costs to the reload time to the limitations of this kind of shooting, that people freak out over the battery life of one of these newer cameras. A slight taken for granted, perhaps. Nevertheless, a mains power cord is provided along with a plethora of information online on how to extend the battery life of this rig. The fan noise. When you get right up close to it, you can hear the fan noise, particularly when shooting in Blackmagic RAW. However, this really isn't something to worry about in my opinion. The ports. You get in a microphone input and a headphone jack, both 3.5mm full-sized HDMI, 12V power input, USB and audio in via a mini XLR. Overall, it's really impressive what Blackmagic have managed to pack into this camera, and all of their cameras for that matter. Obviously just be careful if you're buying this camera used, and make sure that if you are, that you're getting the free version of DaVinci Resolve, because sometimes a used seller won't always offer that. But yeah, to finish off, I just want to show you some images that were captured with this camera in RAW, just to show you the quality. If you like the video, then don't forget to give it a like, it really helps me out in beating the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment if you think there's anything that I missed and that's worth talking about with this camera. Finally, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated with all of my future uploads. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.